You seen it? He's seen it. Okay? So this happens in what we call transitions. Okay? And this is a regular interval. Okay? So remember back to the questions where you deposited this amount of money and it's compounded monthly. Okay? It happens every month. Or it's compounded quarterly, which means it happens every 3 months. Okay? That's your transition. How often is it happening? Okay? So, some discrete growth examples. Animals with consistent breeding. Okay. A loan with regular monthly payments, which you guys are going to see shortly. Okay, so the loans that you pull out for college, you normally don't have to do anything until after you have graduated or left the school. So if you decide to quit early, they're going to start making. So, believe it or not, this actually has to do with real life.
Oh, yeah.
And you will see this again. Y'all always ask me, when am I ever going to see this again? I can honestly tell you, you will see this again. You've got to pull out a loan to buy a house and all that happy stuff. Welcome to adulthood.
Yeah, you got to bring yourself in debt if you want to come up in life.
You got to make sure you bring your packet with you.
Right.
My math teacher.
Right. According to my math teacher, this should say,
I'm supposed to see this.
honestly though, you don't need to know everything, but knowing the basics, people won't pull one over on you. Okay? You know how hard it is to go to a car dealership and buy a car as a woman because every car dealer thinks, oh, she's stupid, she doesn't know what she's talking about, so I can get her over on
You're
this.
not going to win an argument with a woman. Just get that up. Right.
Don't even try. It's never going to happen.
That's why I don't argue with my mom.
Smart man. Smart man.
All right, man, you done? Okay. I can't say that.
I can't say that. My mom smacked me if I say, are you done?
I gotta laugh. I gotta laugh, though. I gotta laugh if I say that. I can't even say okay.
My mom.
Are you done? Like, yes, okay.
Okay, so basic questions you're going to be able to answer in this chapter. What will happen to a given population over time? So, is the population dying out or is it growing? Okay, what are the long-term patterns of growth, if there are any? Okay, transition rule. Okay, this is the only time that a recursive rule is going to come back into play. Okay, so your transition rule is what's happening. So you're taking the number before and you're adding such and such. So this tells you when the change happens and how the population has changed. So we're going back to sequences. Your generic population sequence will always start with P sub 0. Okay, P sub 0 start is your initial or starting value. Your seed. What you plant to make your sequence grow. So, how many cars did you start with? How much money did you start with? Okay. P sub n is the size of the population. Pro start.
We were worried about you.
Oh, here's my note.
Thank you, my darling.
You're welcome.
Here is one notepad.
Mr. Johnson said if you like to his class.
Whatever that is, it smells delicious.
Really? Yeah.
That's implying you want a piece? Miss Mitch? Is that implying you want a piece?
No, we left our pie in there because it was just too hot to take today.
Okay, so this leads us into my first example. Okay, so we have the number of cars produced is expected to increase by 25 every 2 months. If the company started with 100 cars, find the population sequence. So, first, what is my transition? How often is this happening?
2 months.
Every 2 months. So, if it's happening every 2 months, how many times does it happen in a year?
6.
6. Fantastic.
Okay. That math I do know.
Good, because you're going to need it for this chapter. So you're already golden. Okay? Your transition rule. What are we doing every time?
Adding
3 by 25.
Adding 25. So you take your number and add 25 every time. That's the only part of last chapter you're ever going to need to remember.
Oh, thank God.
Okay, so at n sub 0 or n equals 0, that's p sub 0. This is your initial population. How many did we start with? 100. After one transition, which is 2 months,
125.
we're at 125. At 2 transitions, which we're now at 4 months ahead, we're at 150. N sub 3 means we've gone 6 months, and we are at 175.
175.
Okay. So, the first question they want you to answer is, how many months have passed if we're looking for P sub 9?
18.
18. How did you get that?
Well, to be honest, I multiplied by 2.
That's exactly what you do. After one transition, it's 2 months. After 2, it's 4 months. Because remember, every transition is 2 months. So, you would take 9 times 2, which gives you 18 months. 18 months have passed. So we're talking 1.5 years. What is the number of cars produced after 5 transitions? Well, we stopped at 3.
200.
225.
225. I'm going to show you. We're going to get there. I promise. We're going to get there today. And when I give you this equation today and you see how easy it is, like 3rd period went, I'm over this. Why? Why didn't you give this to me last chapter? Like, I hate you. Okay? What is the number of cars produced after 1 year?
400.
Yeah, 250.
It's going to be 250. Remember, Trey already said that's 6 times a year. Well, we've already done 5, which took me to 225. So this takes me to 250. Because we're actually looking for P sub 6.
I just multiplied 6 times 25.
That works. Okay. Example number 2. Michael expects to double his profit every 6 months. It's not spelled right. Not him. This is EAL. Okay.
It don't matter.
So,
Michael Jackson.
Michael expects to double his profit every 6 months on his investments and has already earned $120 in profit. What is my transition? 6 months, which means how many times a year? Good. 6 months means 2 times a year. What's happening this time?
120. Oh no.
What's happening?
It's gonna double.
It's going to double, which means we do what to the number?
Times 2.
Times 2. So 2 times a sub n minus 1. Okay. So we started at where, Lewis?
So what? 120.
120.
Hey, she said Lewis. She said Mike.
I mean, this problem's all about him, though, right?
I'm not.
It is all
That was
about
spelled
him,
wrong.
kind of.
Kind of, sort of, maybe.
Hang
on, my darling. Okay, so if we're doubling, we went from 120 to
240.
240.
360. Wait.
Doubling,
Oh. My fault.
480.
What is it?
480.
960.
960.
960.
Yeah.
say non-semi, I was like, that's not right.
1920.
1920. Let's stop there. Okay?
120.
Actually, we can't stop there. We got to keep going. So this is P sub 0. This is P sub 1. This is P sub 2. This is P sub 3. P sub 4. Okay. Part A says how much profit is he making in the 8th generation. So I need to go 4 more times. I need to know what P sub 5 is. 3,940. I need to know what P sub 6 is.
Something like
7.
87,880.
Yeah,
78.
yeah.
Okay, and we need to know what P sub 7 is.
15760.
15760. And finally, now we can find what they want. P sub 8 is what?
31.
30,000.
31,000.
31,000.
520.
Hey, that's not right.
It's 30,000.
30?
So 15,760 must not.
That's
No,
it
it's
has to be
31,000.
31,000.
It's 31,000.
Because it's over
It's not.
15,000.
So something went wrong somewhere. Somebody plugged in something wrong. Because I promise you it's
It's on
not.
P5. It's supposed to be 3840.
30.
P5.
Yeah, it's 38.
Yeah, that's right.
It's 3840.
It wasn't even me, that was 7680.
3840, you said what?
7680.
7680, 15, 360.
Okay, so now it's 30,000 what?
720.
Thank you.
I knew that.
I knew something went wrong because I knew my answer was right on there.
But now I gotta erase everything.
Oh, man, good thing you used a pencil.
Big fat.
Okay,
30.
how much profit has Michael made in the 3rd year of investing?
480. No,
Okay.
not, or 90.
Remember,
I don't know.
remember, it happens every 6 months, so that's 2 times a year. So what am I actually looking for at 3 years?
6. P6.
6. Okay, if I'm talking 3 years and twice a year, I'm looking for P sub 6, which means 7,680. Your P sub 6 is 7,680. Okay, part C doesn't actually want us to solve for it. They want to know how many years into the future is P sub 36.
12. No, I mean
18.
13.
I got a question.
No,
Why would you
that's
not
not
take
it.
9.
It's 18.
18. Because it's actually,
Hold on, Michael's asking me a question.
it's asking for profit, so why wouldn't you take 120 off of sub 6?
120 is profit.
That's what he started with.
In profit.
Oh, I see what you.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, because it's starting you out with profit.
18 years.
It's 18 years.
How do we get 18 years?
Divided by 2.
Divided by 2. It's 2 times a year. So if we're looking at 36, we divide that by 2. 18 years have gone past. 18 years.
How many years I've been on this earth?
One more page and we're finished for today. One more page and we're done. Okay, so little did you know, the arithmetic sequence, the one where you had to add the same number or subtract the same number, is a linear growth model,
Yeah.
which means it's going to create a what if I graph it?
Straight line.
A straight line. Okay. So, example problem 1. A city has considered a new law to restrict the monthly amount of garbage that's allowed into the landfill to a maximum of 12 tons a month. That's all you're allowed to put in. Although there are currently only 800 tons of garbage in the landfill, there is a concern that the landfill will reach its maximum capacity of 2,000 tons. First off, what's my transition? How often is this happening? Monthly. Which means how many times a year?
12.
Good. Okay, what's my transition rule?
12 tons.
12 tons. We're adding 12 tons every month. So a sub n minus 1 plus 12. Now they want us to write the population sequence. How much garbage do we start with?
800.
800 tons. Okay, our maximum capacity is 2,000, so please be careful with that. So if we're at 800 and my rule tells me we add 12 each time, 812, 824, 36, 848, and finally 860. Right. Part B wants us to plot the points on the graph. So let's make this easy. Put your population sequence up the side. So we start at 800, we go to 812. Remember, you can make the scale anything you want. So this one, we're going up by 12. So that means at 0, we are at 800. At 1, we're at 812. And you can visually see that this is going to create that linear graph. It's going to create that line. So what type of graph is created? It's linear. Okay. You were given a basic form of a linear equation. What was it? Y equals
mx plus 12.
y equals mx plus b.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what does m represent in this equation?
It's the slope.
The slope. Your slope is rise over run. So what is my slope?
1.
Yep.
Careful.
Rise over run.
12 over 1.
12. It goes up by 12 and to the right by 1. So my slope is 12.
12x.
X plus. What did B represent?
Your starting point.
Your starting point. Where do we start?
800.
800. I can now use this equation to find anything I want.
I remember this.
Whoa. Okay. So if I wanted to know what the third number is, you would plug in 3. 3 times 12 is what?
36.
36 plus 800?
836.
3? 836.
Wow.
Mind blown. Mind blown. So,
Hold on, I want to pay attention.
you weren't paying attention to what?
So it's always gonna be like that. The slope is always gonna be.
Except for the geometric.
Unless it's a geometric.
Which
This is only when you're adding or subtracting the same thing over and over.
Is the geometric going to be an exponential group?
Okay, so we can now use this to answer questions like 1D. How much garbage will be in the landfill 5 years from now?
860.
So if it's 5 years from now, what do we plug in for X?
No, 60.
Y.
You know what? I'm done.
Okay,
Oh, 5 years.
you've got to think. How many times did you say this was happening a year? 12. If this is 5 years, that's 60. So we've got 5 years times 12 times a year because it's monthly. So that gives me an X value of 60.
Wow.
So now we've got 12 times 60 plus 800.
Wait, why are we?
I'm a little confused now. Fuck.
We didn't even do all that when you asked about the top.
Oh, wait, no, never mind.
Because we didn't use the equation yet. I didn't give you the shortcut equation yet. I could have, though. If you go back, so, Natroya, here, you would go back. So, y equals your slope. Oh, no, this one's a multiply. This one's a multiply. You can't do it with that one because it's a multiply. That's a whole nother ballgame, and we'll get there. But here, y equals, what are we going up by each time?
25.
25. So this would be 25x plus my starting value was 100. And it works every time. Okay. Okay, so here, again, we're talking a total of 5 years, and if this happens 12 times a year, my X value is actually 60. So we plug in 60. What did you say you got, Michael?
Yeah, it's 15.
It's a 15 points.
Is that pounds or tons? Tons, sorry.
Something smells like really good.
Alright.
Nah, it's like a shower type smell.
Okay. So, 1,520 tons are in this landfill after 5 years. Okay? How long before the landfill is going to reach its, this should be 2,000, sorry.
Oh, I calculated for 20,000, I had 1,600.
Yeah. It's going to be
So
huge.
it'd be 600.
Just bump it down one. Okay? So, how long before the landfill reaches its 2,000 ton capacity? Where does 2,000 plug in?
2000.
For your Y, okay? X represents your months, Y represents your tons. So this one we would plug in for Y.
It's 20,000.
I just told you to fix it
Boy,
because it's not
Come
20,000,
My bad.
okay?
I was like messing around with my calculator, seeing if I could get the crap one.
So what is my first step to get X by itself?
Isolate.
Isolate, so we have to do what?
Minus 800.
Minus 800 first. Okay, so we get 1,200 equals 12X. Now what?
Divide.
Divide by 12. So X equals
1,000. 100.
100. And this is what? 100 what?
Tons.
Years.
Months.
Months.
Months. Remember, this is a monthly transition.
months.
So that represents months.
Calculated.
But calculated.
Yeah, hold up. Just do it.
This is giving me a headache.
8.3 years.
How'd you get that?
Divided by 12. 100 divided by 12.
Divide by 12. That means 8.3 years have gone past.
So 8 months in March. 8 years in March.
Okay. All right. So. This is just like a recap of what everything we talked about. So a linear growth is what we call an arithmetic sequence. Again, that's where you add or subtract the same number over and over again. The definition is literally the difference between terms of a sequence is constant, which means you add or subtract the same number. That number is called your common difference, which is D, and your initial population is the seed, which is P sub 0. So your sequence will go P sub 0, P sub 1, 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth. So we need to go back and review what we did last chapter, just finding common difference and stuff. If you look at A, what is my common difference? What's happening?
Is it?
Plus 4. It's going up by 4 each time.
Right.
Okay. B,
Subtract 7.
minus 7. C,
Hold up.
26.
Subtract 26.
subtract 26. So in the last chapter, we used this nasty recursive sequence that you all hated. Okay? This chapter, I'm going to teach you what we call the explicit formula, which means I can plug in anything I want and get whatever I want without having to sit there and use the numbers that come before it. Okay? So this one here is your y equals mx plus b. Okay? So if you want to use that, by all means, use that. What we're going to use in here, though, is the equation that they're going to give you on your formula sheet. I want you to have practice with that equation you're going to look at. Okay? Because if you forget everything else, at least that's in front of you and you can use it. So that equation is a sub n equals a sub 1 plus n minus 1 times d. Okay? That is the formula that is going to be printed on the sheet for you. And it is a beautiful formula.
Is that minus D or times D?
Times D.
Piss you off. She be a bit pissed.
Okay. So the biggest thing is you can't use your initial value. A sub 1 is 1 after your initial value. Okay, so it's the second number in your sequence. Okay,
So like the seven.
so please keep that in mind. So if we go to here, I'm done with recursive, so don't even worry about this. Okay, I'm done with it. Over. Okay, so in order to write your equation, you need to first find A sub 1. That is the second number in your sequence. So A sub 1 here is 13. Because again, this is 0, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3. Okay, it always starts at 0. The other thing you need is your D value. So what is happening here?
Plus 6.
Plus 6. Okay, that's all you need to write your formula.
Okay.
So now your formula is A sub n equals 13 plus n minus 1 times 6. That's it.
You got the
We'll
6
go with
from
it
7 minus 13, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, 13 minus 7. You always want to take your second number and subtract off the one that comes before it.
If we was trying to solve this, what would we put in for A-9?
So now, if I told you to find the 9th number in the sequence, you would literally go 13 plus 9 minus 1 times 6.
Or 9?
Right.
Oh.
If I told you you're finding the 9. If you're trying to find the 27, n would be 27.
Oh, okay.
Whatever number you're trying to find would go in for n. Okay?
So we would do 9 times 6 for try. Or we subtract.
It would be 9 minus 1 first, so 8 times 6. But you can literally plug it into your calculator the way you see it, and it'll do it for you.
That's
Okay, so B, what is my A sub 1? Negative 1. Okay, what is my pattern? What's my D value? Plus 2. So A sub n equals negative 1 plus n minus 1 times 2. C, what is my A sub 1?
-3.
Negative 3. What is my D value? Subtracting 5. So A sub n equals negative 3 plus n minus 1 times negative 5.
That's good. So that's like the answer.
Okay.
Oh, this is
So I can give you anything I want. I can tell you to find P sub 17 and you plug 17 in for n and move on with your life. Okay. What time do you have to go down?
He didn't say.
I'm taking the class down about 2:40. So, okay. D, what's my A sub 1? Negative 6. And what's happening? Minus 3. So A sub n equals negative 6 plus n minus 1 times negative 3. And finally, the last one, 61. And D. It's going to be 19. 20 would take you to 62, so it's 19. Okay, so A sub n equals 61 plus n minus 1 times 19. The next set, I think there's 3 problems in the next set. We're actually going to solve for something. So you need to come up with the equation, and then we're actually going to plug in numbers. And then we've got 2 word problems. Okay, so they tell me P sub 0, as I
Just
throw
toss
the
all
marker
the
right.
markers.
Don't get mad.
Go ahead.
Oh.
P sub 0 equals 8 and D equals 3. Well, this is a problem because I need technically P sub 1 for this, or A sub 1. So if P sub 0 is 8 and my D is 3, what is P sub 1? 11. 8 plus 3 gives me 11. Okay, and they already tell you D is 3. So we've got A sub n equals 11 plus n minus 1 times 3. What are they asking us to find now? 16. So we plug in 16 for n. 11 plus 16 minus 1 times 3. You can plug it in exactly the way you see it.
56.
56.
86.
If we would have done this in the last chapter, you would have had to sit there and go, 8 plus 3 is 11, 11 plus 3 is 14, 14 plus 3 is 17, and continue to go until you got to the 16th one.
See, if I'd have
You should have
known,
gave this before you did that.
if we would have known this formula, my century would have been like 30 points higher.
So with B, what is my A sub 1 and B? 5.9. What is my D value?
0.6.
0.6. So A sub n equals 5.9 plus n minus 1 times 0.6. What am I plugging in this time?
Wait,
39.
You good?
why are we rounding by 6? Oh, it's
You're
always going
adding
to
points. Yeah, it's like your slope, which is why you multiply slope times x and x. So this time we plug in 39 times 0.6.
34.
28.7.
Yeah.
28.7.
Yep.
Oh, I see what I did wrong. My bad.
Okay. Finally, this last one. Okay. I know you all hate fractions, so change it to a decimal. What's 1.5?
1.5.
1.5.
3.75.
This is 3.75. Okay, so what's my D value?
Let me subtract. That's like 2.25.
25. Fantastic. Okay, I still need to go back though and find A sub 1. They only gave me 2 and 3.
Negative, point, 1.5.
Negative 0.75.
Should be negative 0.75. Okay, so the pattern's telling me I'm adding 2.5 every time. Well, to go backwards, you need to subtract it. Excuse me. Which gives you negative 0.75. So this is A sub n equals negative 0.75 plus n minus 1 times 2.25. What are we plugging in?
36.
36. So negative 0.75 plus 36 minus 1 times 2.25. Alexis.
78.
If you want to play the drums, go to Mr. Tomberlin's class.
Negative 0.75.
Okay, so what you have right now is you know what P sub 2 is and P sub 3. This is 1.5 and this is 3.75. So we found out to go from here to here, we add 2.25. I need P sub 1 to do my equation though. So to go backwards, I have to subtract 2.25, which gives me negative 0.75.
Okay.
Okay. Make sense? Just like if I would multiply by 2, to go backwards, I would divide by 2 to get your answers. Okay? All right. Let's see if we can at least get through
Yeah, we're gonna have time. We're not.
Nah, I'll do that.
Yeah, maybe out of time.
We got 3 minutes.
We ain't got time.
We really don't.
That just means more tomorrow.
That's fine. That's fine.
Okay.